Okay, let's begin. Okay, good evening to everyone. Okay, here we go again. We will have to push our exercise. Okay, moving forward. Planning and control management, a special topic. Uh, Thank you um, for all the subscriptions, likes, and share. Our previous episode was part 4, session 28. And that was about program update 002 as of 31 July 2022. And it's for the estimate project remaining cost, status report, summary, and the reports archive. Now, our current episode is a special topic, session 7. And this is about project resource labeling concepts. Okay, let's try to make our discussion for this topic as concise as possible to be clearly understood. Actually, resource labeling is a very tedious job to perform, and we should be thankful to the modern technology nowadays because it makes the life of a scheduler far more easier than during a couple of decades ago when software like Primavera P6 was not yet in existence. Okay, so I presume that we cannot complete the whole content or subject of this, of this subject in one session since we need to clearly elaborate this topic in detail. Okay, first, the question here is what is resource labeling? Actually, I have read many articles from different sources and individuals with different point of views. But my own simple way of understanding resource labeling is this. Objective is to elaborate and comprehend the project resource labeling concepts. Okay. First, I think we better create a sample project for this resource labeling topic. And then after we finish this topic, we will, sorry, we will apply resource labeling in our project baseline program. I mean, is the one that we created really for this exercise, our baseline program. We will apply it there when we finish this elaboration or discussion on resource labeling. Okay, let's open our Primavera P6. Okay, here we go. Actually, I already created a sample project, and I named it as a resource labeling. So we have here 3 activities to make it very simple. So here in our activity A, we have a duration of 40, and also for B is 40 and 20 for C. And this is the total float, okay? So this is our critical activities. I put this activity C as 20 so that we have an activity with an available float because we have to demonstrate this one. Okay. So here, looking at the resource here, I also to make it simple, I assigned one a resource here, which is the laborer or non-skilled resource. And the budget here is 10 budgeted units is 10 units per day, or meaning 10 laborers per day. And our maximum units per the time here is 10 days. Anyway, we will explain this later. Okay, first we will, okay, the time scale is already 1, 2, in by days. So our time scale here is placed in days. Okay. Okay, I think we need to show our resource tab here. I will go to enterprise and enterprise resource. And then here we go. So this is our resource, but actually we only use this laborer. Okay. So we have here our activity window, activity window tab, and also the resource dictionaries tab. Okay, anything else? So we will go to activity. Okay. First, we will be, we'll go to activity. We will walk through to the resource labeling dialog box. So here we can find it here, tools and label resource. Okay. Okay, here we go. Now here, we have a lot of, we have several items to set up here. Okay, we will go to automatically label resources when scheduling. We can put it here or not. So just leave it there. The most important here is that we understand what are these items. Next is the consider assignments in other projects with priority equal or higher than 5. So meaning we want to consider the other projects here, but for now, we will not be considering it. So just leave it unmarked. And then we will go to preserve schedule early and late dates. Okay. Take note of this one, because when you say preserve scheduled early and late dates, when you mark this, this is pertaining to the early dates and the late dates. Okay, I think you can still remember our topics on the forward and backward calculation of the schedule. We demonstrate there how the early dates are being established, and also the late dates. So here, when we say preserve schedule early and late dates, this means that when you mark this box, this means we are only considering the early dates. Okay, take note of that. When you mark the box, we are only considering on the early dates. If you uncheck this box or unmark this box, we are considering both the early and the late dates. So meaning, if we will, since this is marked, that means that when we run the labeling, only the early dates will be affected, and the late dates will stay as is. It will not be affected by the resource labeling. Okay, because when we run a resource labeling, when there is an over allocated resource activity, the dates, or I mean the existing dates or the established dates of the activities will be delayed, or meaning it will be pushed just to satisfy the available resource. But anyway, when I say available and the allocated resource, we will be explaining that after this. Okay, let's try to look at our, okay, we will be getting back to this while we are on elaborating our topic for today. Anyway, we will just continue this one. Okay, recalculate assignment cost after labeling. So if you want your assignment cost, I mean when we will run the labeling, of course the allocations of the resources in the activity will change per period. It depends on the competing activities. Okay, when we say competing activities, let's say for example this one. Those are the activities that are concurrent. Okay, when we say from this period down to this period, these two activities here are competing the resources. Or if you have a labor resource on this period and you have a labor resource on this period also, so they are competing on the resources. Let's say, for example, if our resources is we allocated only 10 resources per day, and we have an available resources of say 20, so that means it is unallocated, because if our available resources is 20, so we allocated it here as 10 and also here as 10 because they are competing. Okay, here there are 3 activities competing here. So or actually this is only an overview for you, but when we go further later, you will understand this one. So these are the 3 competing activities here, and this here there are 2 competing activities. Okay, so when we say recalculate assignment cost after labeling, so you may do it, you may check it or unmark. If you unmark this one, and then you can do later the labeling, right? So that the cost will be calculated. Or if you want to check it, it's up to you. It is on your judgment. Okay, so for now, we will remove this one because we don't have any cost. Okay, label all resources. So here, we can choose, even though we have a lot of resources assigned in our activity, we can choose only one activities. Let's say, for example, in one activity, it has a labor assignment, has a skilled personnel. But if you want only the skilled personnel, then just remove this one, and then here you can select it. Okay. So if you want all of them, then check it. Okay. Now here, label resources only within activity total float. Okay, within activity total float. That means if you mark this checkbox, you are considering that the labeling process will limit the will be limited into applying the labeling of the available resources into those activities who has a available float. Okay. Actually, the purpose of this one is that if you check this one, it will not affect your current completion schedule. That means only those activities that are not critical will be affected. Okay. Now you can preserve the minimum float when you're labeling. You can put it here if you limit the labeling into 5 days. So you can put it here. You can put it 5, 1, but mostly we are using 0 to maximize the labeling distribution. Okay. Now here, labeling priorities. Okay. You can add here the some other priorities here. Actually, Primavera give us the list of priorities to be used in labeling, and we will be looking at for it just after this. Okay, so here you can add and you can remove. You can delete this one, or you can add one more. Let's say total float. Actually, we are using total float here always. Okay, and here you can see you can choose the sort order, whether the priority is you want it sort in order of ascending. It's up to you. Okay. So now we will go to okay, here. Okay, okay, this is a project resource labeling. Introduction. Okay, a project resource labeling, as I said, this is my own way of defining project resource labeling. It is the method or process of optimizing the availability of resources in contemplation to project priorities and constraints. Okay. Why it is priorities here? Why we include here the priorities? Because here priorities is involved in this process. It is because most of the cases in construction projects, 2 or more activities can't be avoided to compete with the same resource concurrently. Okay, I have already mentioned this a while ago, that if you look at our schedule here, okay, here you can see here the competing activities, right? Okay, let's get back. Okay, so meaning they are concurrent. Okay, while constraint here, while constraint is also involved in the process, it is because the process can be limited in some extent. Okay. As most construction project has a contractual completion restriction, which must not be altered or modified deliberately to satisfy the resource availability. And one of the several instances is limiting the labeling process specific to activities with available flow to avoid the altering effect of the process against the established project completion date. So what I am pointing here is this one. Okay. If you look at here, our labeling dialog box here, this is what I mean. Okay. You need to limit this one so that it will not affect your the completion of your project, because most project has a contractual completion requirement. You need not to, you must not affect the established completion. Let's say, for example, if the completion is 300 days for a specific date, you have to maintain that date, or you can run the labeling of the resources without affecting that completion date, because that is a contractual requirement. So therefore, you have to limit the labeling process to affect only those activities with available float, right? Because if you uncheck this one, meaning it will deliberately allow the available resources to be labeled at AD required extent, and it will extend your schedule. Okay, it will change the date and it will really extend your schedule when you uncheck this one, and you will allow the labeling process to do the to execute its process deliberately. Okay, so that is the purpose. Now let's get back here. Okay, the primary subjects in a resource labeling are the two conflicting parameters. Okay, take note of this one. And the first parameter here is the resource availability. So this one is the maximum or limited resource units per time that is definitely and readily available in time for a particular work package of the project. And it is set in Primavera P6 as the maximum units per time at the units and prices tab of the resource dictionary. So this means this resource availability, this is the assurance that you have that resources when the activity is executed, meaning there is no more issue, no more conflict, or you have already that amount of resources for that activity, meaning you are very sure that you have that available resources to execute the activity or work package. Now, you can set this resource availability. You can see this one in here. Okay. Let's close this one. Okay, let's say yes. Okay. Here under the resource, actually we have already our resource here, right? Our resource dictionary. Anyway, we will go to the activities, and then we will go to okay. We will go to the layout of, would you like to change? Yes. Okay, anyway, we will go to, wait a minute, the layout of, okay, resource profile. Okay, let's apply this one. I have already prepared this one. Okay, here. Okay, since we have only used, so we will be showing only the resource for our current project. So we will right click here and then filter and then click current project resources. Okay, so we are shown here the laborer is 10, maximum units per time is 10 days. So we'll get back to resources. Okay, here, if we will look at our, since we have only assigned the laborer, where is those laborer? Manpower, lead man, foreman. Why laborer is not here? Okay, we'll get back resource. Why we cannot find our laborer here? Oh, okay, here. So here, this is the maximum units per time. This is what I am telling the available resources. That means that resources is already available on our project. This is the maximum or the limited availability of our project resource for the labor, meaning we can only supply immediately up to a maximum of 10 units per day of labor. So this is our available resources. Okay. So now we will go back to our, okay, here. So this is what I mean, the maximum units per time at the units and prices. So that is the resource availability. Okay. Next, we have here the resource allocation. Okay. Understand this one, that resource allocation is the budgeted resource units per time assignment or assigned to a particular activity or allocation into a particular work package of the activity or of the project, in which the main intent is to allocate resource units per time derived from a proper estimation of resource effort or efficiency required in order to complete a particular work package of the project. So that means this resource allocation is the budgeted resource units, meaning you have calculated this one according to your own best estimate on how much, how many units of resource will be required to complete the project or work package of the project. Okay, so that is the I hope you understand. So we already understand resource availability and resource allocation, right? Okay, so this conflicting units of resources is the reason why we have to run the resource labeling for a project. Okay, next we'll move. So when we say on allocation or unallocated, that is where resource available units per time. Let me show you first what is resource allocation in Primavera P6. Okay. Okay. So here, resource allocation, you can find it here in our Primavera. We will go to activities. Okay. We will go to the layout of activity layout. Okay, here. That resource allocation is this one. Okay. Budgeted units per time. So when you prepare a project after you finish the schedule dates, then you will be assigning resources, right? Or you'll be loading resources to each activity of your project. So you can do this one. Let's say, for example, if you add a resource here, another labor like that. So you have to do your estimate here, right? So that is a resource allocation. That is meaning that is the budgeted units per time allocation. So we'll remove that one. Okay, we'll change this to 10 also. Okay, take note that we put here we put a resource here or 10 units per day for activity A, and then for activity B, we have a 10 budgeted units per day. For activity C is 10 also. So this is only our assumption. Okay, so let's get back to, okay. I just want to let you understand very well regarding this project resource leveling. So I think you already understand what is resource availability and resource allocation. So let's move forward. When we say on allocation, this is where the available units per time, okay, is sufficient to accommodate the required budgeted allocation units per time. Meaning, let's say, for example, if you have an available 10 units, let's say 10 laborers per day, you can, I mean, is that you can supply 10 laborer per day or helper per day, and your calculation for that activity is also 10. So meaning you are unallocated, meaning that is just the exact number of available units with the allocation units. Okay, meaning there is no more, no less, no more. Meaning your estimate is that you need 10 labor per day for that activity, and also you have an available of 10 labor or laborer per day. So that means you are on allocation. Next is the over allocation. So this is where resource available units per time is insufficient to accommodate the required or budgeted allocation units per time. So meaning if your available units, or I mean, if your available resource in hand is not sufficient to accommodate the required or budgeted resource units per day. So meaning if you, let's say, for example, if you have your available units in hand that you can provide immediately is 10 units per day, and you calculated your calculation shows that you need a budgeted allocations of 15. So that means your estimate is bigger compared to the available with 5 units. So that is called over allocation, meaning your allocation or budgeted units is higher compared to the available one. Okay, next is the under allocation. So this is where resource available units is more than sufficient. So it is not only it is sufficient, but it is more than sufficient to accommodate the required or budgeted allocation per time. Okay, so meaning if you have an available units of 10 and you only required 5, so you are under allocated. So you can use the 5 activities on your activity or work, and the other 5 will be standby, or you can utilize it into other activities. Okay, so that means when you run the labeling, that 5 budgeted units and the other 5, when you run the labeling, it will be relocated into the other activities with the same resource. Okay, next. Primavera P6 provides a quick function in a resource labeling for over allocation and alternative solutions by changing activity logics and or reallocating resources. Okay, and or reducing activity duration to address the under allocation to maximize the utilization of available resources, if allowed by the contract agreement or otherwise for analysis reference only. Actually, mostly when the project or schedule is already established and approved, you are not allowed to reduce the duration anymore. Okay, even the logics, you have to have the consent of the owner before once the schedule or program is approved. You cannot do it alone. If it is a contractual document, you have to have the consent of the owner to do that. Okay, but for you, for let's say, for example, if only for use on analysis reference, so you can do whatever you want. Okay, so the purpose of this alternative solution is that actually Primavera will be only attending or addressing the over allocation. Okay, once your activity is over allocated, Primavera will do the means to level it when you command Primavera to do it. But how about if you are under allocated? Actually under allocated, you can compress your schedule because you have a lot of exist available units than the required or allocation. Okay. Next, in this process, resource availability is in dominance for the established activity dates to adapt the changes as suitable to the optimized utilization of available resources. Actually, my wordings here or the way I've just tried to make this wordings simple on my own way of doing this one to let you understand it very well. Okay, so in this process, so that means the available resources here, when you run the leveling, resource leveling, it's really the one dominates the process. Okay, because once your activity is over allocated, so the available resources will be distributed and it will affect your activity dates. If you really want resource leveling to do its job, to satisfy your available resources. Okay. So next, applying resource leveling into an established project program or schedule could definitely impact activity dates due to the intent of satisfying the availability of a specific resource, capable of delaying activity dates when it is over allocated in the particular activity or in a competing or concurrent activities. Okay. We can see it is the competing is the same meaning as concurrent activities because they are in parallel movement. Okay, we use the concurrent word term here because when we say parallel, actually my understanding of parallel is that they started and finished exactly at the same time. But when we say concurrent, it does not really mean that the way a parallel is being defined. Okay. Next is if resources are unlimited and available on time when it is required for all or any of the work packages of the project, it could definitely achieve the project completion commitment or even ahead of required project completion. But in the real world, or I mean in the real and busy world of construction industry, let's accept the reality that resources are not always boundless, especially during the time when its necessity critically demands. Due to numerous and unavoidable factors and constraints in sourcing supply of resources in a certain level of difficulty. Okay, moving forward. So in Primavera P6, this is just giving you this one is just to give you an overview before we proceed into the detailed discussion. Okay. In Primavera P6, the execution of project resource labeling in the established program or schedule is temporary. Why temporary? Because in the sense that a refreshing schedule calculation after the resource labeling determination will generate the original state of the schedule before the resource was labeled. You know what I mean? When you run the labeling on your schedule, after you run and you have already the determination of the uh, resource units or the new, I mean the new dates of your schedule because of the due to the application of labeling resource labeling, you have to and once you run the schedule in here, once you run the schedule after you execute the labeling process, it will erase the labeling result. So that is why a resource labeling assessment will be totally exterminated. So, and the need to save or capture the program as the resource labeled version is a key for storing. So that means when you run the labeling, when you run resource labeling on your schedule or project, and if you know that it is already final, don't run the scheduling because you will be running again the labeling, resource labeling on your project. So if you are really sure that your labeling execution is already final and it's looking good, then save it and don't run the schedule. Okay. Next conclusion is the process involves the development of project schedule or time element of the project, and then the allocation or estimating budget of resource into the project in accordance to the required resource effort or concurrence to project timeframes prior to the analysis of available resource leveling. So meaning the process of this one is that you have to develop first the schedule, fixing the time, finalizing the time, and then after that you have to estimate your resources to be allocated in each activity of your project, and then you will be running the resource leveling when you want how the available resource you have affects the established dates. Okay, next. Technically, defining project baseline program taking into account the consideration of labeling the resource availability is always possible and an accepted practice that could be applied either in general or in specific resource in which it has an advantage in comparison to the programs with unlabeled resources, where achieving progress economical time and cost objective is evidently feasible. Next, the decision of utilizing either the labeled or unlabeled project resource for the project is up to the organization. But the bottom line is the economical objective of every project is always the absolute rationale why a project is being pursued. Okay, moving forward. Okay, here is the labeling priorities that was I'm telling you here. Let's get back to Primavera. Okay, here. When you go to tools, label resources, here, this is the labeling priorities. So Primavera has a list of labeling priorities, and this is it. Okay, labeling priorities. One is, here are the list of priorities, activity ID, activity priority, early finish, early start, free float, late finish, late start, original or planned duration, planned finish, planned start, project priority, remaining duration, and total float. But actually, I am using the total float because there is actually, when you look at for the priorities, when you choose for the priorities, you have to look at for the most important one that is really will affect the feasibility or the economical result of the labeling process. Okay, let's go to the, okay, so this should be in, the priority should also be, you will be choosing for the ascending order. So here, the sorting order. So you can, if you use the ascending, let's click that one, you have choose here the ascending or descending. Okay. Okay, let's go back. Okay, the ascending order here, activity ID is the lowest to the highest. The same thing as in activity priority, meaning the lowest, the numbering of the activity ID is being considered here. And also the priority lowest to the highest. Here in the early finish, it is the earliest to the latest, meaning if you choose the ascending order, it will choose first the earliest of the early finish. Okay. Okay, moving forward, the same as this one also, free float. So this is the least to the highest. When we talk of float, the least float is the most critical, meaning that is the remaining allowed number of days or duration that you will have to complete a certain or a particular activity or duration. So when the float is highest, that means that is the least critical, meaning you have a lot of float. So your project is not so really critical. Okay, late finish, the earliest to the latest also, earliest to the latest. Take note, we are talking of the ascending order, shortest to the longest. Okay, earliest, lowest to the highest, project priority, remaining duration. So when we say remaining duration, we're talking of the length of the duration. So that is the shortest to the longest. And here in total float, they are the same of the free float, and the least to the highest, or most critical to the least critical. Next, we'll go to the descending order. So actually, when we say ascending order and descending order, it is obviously understood that it is the reciprocal of the ascending. Okay? So meaning the ascending order, meaning the descending order is the reciprocal of the ascending order. So meaning you will just to reciprocate the sentence here, or the okay, moving, okay, highest, here lowest to highest, but here highest to lowest. Of course, that is the reciprocal. Okay, so I think this is very understood already. So here, least to the highest. So here, it will be highest to the least, or a less critical to the most critical. Okay, latest. Okay, longest to shortest. Okay, so we're done. I hope that you understand this discussion, because this is really very important. So our next episode is, of course, we have to execute the leveling on Primavera. But now, this is all about on explaining or discussing the concept of leveling or resource leveling, and also the some terms and definitions being used here. Okay, and okay. So here, in this labeling priorities here, you can check it here. You can choose. You can choose several priorities here if you want. It depends. I think it depends on the need of what you want. The labeling will be prioritizing when it execute its process. Okay, this one is very important here. The preserve schedule early and late dates. I hope you understand this one, and level resources only within activity total flow. Okay, the way I prepared this exercise is I'm really thinking this to be able for you to really understand, and you will not be confused to the process of scheduling in Primavera P6. Okay, let's close now, and then let's prepare for the next episode. Okay, moving forward. Okay, our next episode is still special topics, session 8. It is still on project resource leveling, but this time we will execute the resource leveling in Primavera P6. Okay, here is the upcoming episodes. Okay, the upcoming episodes, kindly subscribe, like, and share. And your comment is valuable to improve the content and quality of our exercise. So if you have some comment, just leave your comment on, and then I will look at it and see what we can do for it. Okay, here is our upcoming episodes. Distinction between a labeled resource and unlabeled resource projects. Okay, this one we will be looking for a proof for the distinction of these two regarding the differential cost. When you say distinction, it's about the differential cost of the two of these two item. We'll be comparing the outcome of the cost when we without label resource and the labeled resource. Okay, next is the update, progress, and actuals using the Microsoft Excel format by Primavera P6 export import feature. And the next is the program update 003, progress and actuals update. Okay, so we'll be and next is the program update 003, incorporating contractors delay into the current program. Okay, I hope you will be here on this upcoming episode, and I hope so. Okay, end of our session. God bless to everyone, and thank you for watching.